Get out of my way, cow. The words cut through the noise of Dunvale's crowded market square like a blade. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. Mara Hulse did not flinch. She stood with one hand resting on the curve of her belly, her spine straight, her chin lifted, meeting Rowan's sneer with a calm that looked almost like boredom. Around her, merchants and farmers and fishwives went still, watching, waiting to see what the pregnant woman would do when the man who had once promised to love her called her livestock in front of a crowd. Still following me around like a lost dog, Rowan said, stepping closer, his voice loud enough to perform for the spectators. You were always embarrassing, Mara. Even more so now. Mara opened her mouth, but before a single word left her lips, a shadow fell over Rowan's shoulder. The man who stepped forward was tall. Still. The kind of still that made noise feel rude. His eyes were the color of winter sky, pale gray, cold, and completely unafraid. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. That was the most frightening part. Say one more word to her, Caelvren said, and I will make sure the last interesting thing that ever happens to you is this conversation. Rowan turned. Took one look at Cael's face. And stepped back. No one in that square knew that the silver-eyed man standing beside Mara was the High Alpha Lord of the Ironwood Dominion. The most powerful shifter alive. The man who had ended a decade of war by killing his own father with his bare hands. But something in every one of them felt it. Mara exhaled slowly. She looked up at Cael, and in the middle of the humiliation and the staring and the cold morning air, she thought, 6 months. 6 months since the night her life had come apart, and this man had walked into the wreckage of it. 6 months earlier, Mara had not looked like a woman anyone would fight for. She sat hunched over a whiskey at the Iron Doe Tavern, still wearing the dress she had put on that morning for her own engagement celebration. The celebration that had ended when she walked in on Rowan in the upstairs room of their shared house, with her stepsister Petra, and understood, all at once, that she had been the only one who did not know. That was what broke her. Not just the betrayal. The fact that everyone else had seen it coming. You look like someone who just lost everything, said a voice beside her. She did not look up. I did. Mind if I sit? Suit yourself. She heard the stool scrape back. Heard him settle. Then nothing. He did not ask questions or offer advice or try to make her feel better. He just sat there, and somehow that was worse, because it made her aware she was not alone, and being not alone made her eyes sting. My name is Cael, he said finally. Mara. What happened, Mara? She laughed, short and humorless. Which part? The fiancé who was sleeping with my sister? Or the stepmother who forged documents and took everything my father left me before the grave was even cold? Silence. Both, he said. She finally looked at him. And she wished she had not, because he was watching her with an expression she did not know how to hold, not pity, not curiosity. Just attention. Absolute, unhurried attention, like she was the only thing in the room worth looking at. You carry a lot, he said. I've had practice. How long? My mother died the night I was born. So. She picked up her glass. Since the beginning. Something shifted in his face. I lost someone too, he said quietly. Not the same. But I know what it is to grow up carrying a weight that was never yours to carry. She studied him. The pale eyes. The careful stillness. There was something behind it, something old, she thought. Something that had been through its own fire and come out the other side quieter for it. You're not from here, she said. No. Where, then? He hesitated. Just barely. North. She should have asked more. She did not. She was tired of asking questions and bracing for answers. So instead they talked, really talked, about small things and large things, about grief and stubbornness and what it meant to still be standing when everything told you to fall. And somewhere in the middle of it Mara felt something loosen in her chest that had been knotted there so long she had stopped noticing the pain of it. By the time the tavern emptied out and the fire burned low, she looked at him and said, "Come upstairs," and he looked back at her and said, "Are you sure?" and she said, "No." "Come anyway." She woke to an empty bed and a hollow feeling that was entirely familiar. Of course. But then she noticed his coat still on the chair. His leather satchel on the floor. She sat up, telling herself it meant nothing, and reached for the closest thing to hold of the satchel, just to move it, just to have something to do with her hands. A document slid out onto the floor. She picked it up. Read it. Read it again. The seal of the Ironwood Dominion stared back at her. Below it, a name and a title she recognized from a decade of wartime headlines. Calvrin. High Alpha Lord *. The air left the room. She had given her secrets, her grief, her broken history, her entire unguarded self, to the ruler of the nation her people had been at war with for 10 years. She had let him into her bed. She had let him see her cry. She grabbed her coat. Her boots. She did not leave a note. She ran. 6 weeks later, a healer in the village of Thornhaven told Mara she was 8 weeks pregnant. "The life force is strong," the healer said, pressing 2 fingers gently below Mara's ribs, her brow furrowed. "Unusually so. The father, his bloodline is powerful." Mara said nothing. "A half-shifter child," the healer continued, carefully, "is not impossible. But it is rare," Mara said. "I know. Dangerous. For you. For the child. For both of you, if the wrong people find out." Mara looked down at her hands. She thought about the seal on that document. She thought about Cale's voice in the dark. "I know what it is to carry something that was never yours to carry." She placed one hand over her stomach. "No one finds out," she said. "I'll handle it alone." The healer looked at her for a long moment. "Will you?" Mara met her eyes. "I always have." She had not counted on Cale. For 6 weeks, he had not slept. His guards brought him food he did not eat, and reports he barely read, and quiet suggestions that perhaps the High Alpha Lord of the Ironwood Dominion had more pressing obligations than combing through every village between the capital and the coast looking for a woman who had not left a forwarding address. "She was one night," his second-in-command said carefully, "one morning outside Thornhaven's south gate." "My lord." "She was." "One night," Cale said, "in which I felt more like a person than I have in 15 years. So no. We are not going back." He found her in a bakery. She was standing at the counter, counting coins in her palm, and he stood in the doorway for 3 full seconds just looking at her, the way she frowned at the coins, the way she tucked her hair back, the completely ordinary miracle of her being alive and here and findable, before she turned around and went absolutely still. "Mara." "No," she said immediately. "I just want to." "You lied about who you were." "I didn't lie. I didn't tell you." "That is the same thing." The baker behind the counter suddenly became very interested in a loaf of bread at the far end of the room. Cale stepped inside and lowered his voice. "You're right," he said. "It was the same thing. And I have spent 6 weeks knowing that and looking for you anyway, Because I need you to know that what happened between us was real. Every word of it. Mara's jaw was tight. Her eyes were bright. She was not going to cry in a bakery in front of the man who ruled the nation her people had bled against for a decade, and she was absolutely not going to let him see that some part of her had been waiting, without permission, for exactly this. Why, she said. Why does it matter? You have a dominion to run. You have. She stopped. Because something had changed in his face. He had gone very still, the particular stillness she remembered from the tavern, except this time his eyes were not on her face. They were lower. His brow pulled together. And then his lips parted. Mara, he said softly. Are you? Don't. The bond, I can feel, he took a breath. There is a heartbeat. The bakery was completely silent. A very small, very strong heartbeat, he said, and it is not yours. The coin in her palm dropped onto the counter. She did not pick it up. Say something, he said. I was going to handle it alone. That is not a plan. That is stubbornness dressed up as a plan. You don't get to. Let me, he said, and the words came out raw, stripped of everything except the truth underneath them. Mara. I ended a war. I took a throne I never wanted from a father who never deserved it. I have done every single hard thing that was put in front of me, and I have done it alone. And then I sat next to you in a tavern for 3 hours, and I thought, this is what I have been doing it for. He paused. Let me take care of you. Both of you. Please. She looked at him for a long time. You have a lot to answer for, she said finally. I know. I have conditions. Tell me. I am not moving into some cold fortress and being displayed like a... Stormhall has fireplaces in every room and my housekeeper makes honey cake on Sundays, and you can have an entire wing to yourself if you need it. She blinked. Oh. Tell me your other conditions. Stormhall was nothing like she had imagined. It was warm and large and full of the kind of quiet that felt like safety rather than emptiness. Cale gave her space and time, and then slowly, carefully, he gave her more than that: evenings by the fire, mornings where he sat across from her and listened, days where he made her laugh at something she had not expected to find funny. She was 3 months along when he proposed. She said yes and then cried and told him she was not crying, and he said, I know, and handed her a handkerchief, and that was that. And then the letter arrived. Cale read it twice before he set it down on the table between them. I need to tell you something, he said, and I need you to let me finish before you respond. Mara looked at his face. Her stomach dropped. What? My arranged mate, Sela. She was reported dead 5 years ago. She was not dead. The room went cold. She is alive, he said. And she is coming here. Cale. Pack law binds us until she consents to release it. I cannot dissolve it unilaterally. But I will find a way, I swear to you. I will not lose you over a law that was written before either of us existed. You should have told me, she said, very quietly. Yes. Is this ever going to stop? The things you didn't tell me? No more, he said. I promise you. No more. Sela was not what Mara expected. She was quiet and hard-eyed and carried herself like a woman who had survived things she did not intend to describe. She looked at Cale the way you look at a place you used to call home and no longer can. I'm not here to fight, Sela said, when the 3 of them sat down together. She looked at Mara. At the rounding of her belly. At Cale's hand resting on the table, angled toward Mara without him seeming to notice. I can see what this is. Selah, Kale started. I release you, she said simply. Formally. Before the elders, however you need it done. You were never mine, Kale. Not really. She stood. Be good to her. She left. And the room was very quiet. Mara let out a breath she had been holding for weeks. It was a bright winter morning when Rowan's voice cut through the market square in Dunvale, and Kale stepped forward, and the crowd held its breath. When Rowan slunk away without another word, Kale turned to Mara. Are you all right? I am now, she said. He took her hand. She let him. Their daughter came 6 weeks early, small and fierce and screaming, in a room at Stormhall lit gold by firelight. Kale did not leave Mara's side. He held her hand through all of it, and when the healer placed the baby in her arms, he looked at them both and something in his face broke open into something that had no name. Lyra, Mara said softly, looking down at the tiny face. Lyra, he agreed. 3 months later, Mara sat in the window seat of their room at Stormhall, watching snow fall on the grounds below. Lyra slept in the crook of her arm, one small fist curled against her chest. Kale came in, saw them, and stopped in the doorway the way he always did, like he needed a second just to take it in. I used to think being strong meant doing everything alone, Mara said, without turning around. He sat beside her. And now? She looked at him. At the pale gray eyes that had seen her at her worst and stayed anyway. At the man who had crossed 6 territories in 6 weeks for a woman who had run from him. Now I think, she said quietly, that letting someone in takes more courage than anything. He pressed his lips to her temple. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and white and quiet, over Dunvale and Thornhaven and Stormhall and everything in between. Asterisk if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. New stories drop every week, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Drop a comment telling us your favorite moment. We read every single one, asterisk.